This present meeting of the Commission is now called to order. Ms. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
John Crotty.
Here.
Peter Machete.
Here.
John Baklemba.
Here.
Barry Sanders.
Here.
Todd Snyder.
Here.
Ms. Secretary, please have the record reflect that a quorum of qualified members are present, thus enabling transaction of business. Given the absence of a designated chair, would the members like to select a member for the purpose of presiding over today's meeting?
I nominate Todd Snyder. Second.
I'm honored and humbled.
All in favor?
Never humble. Aye. Humble.
Okay, unanimously.
We're good.
Mr. Chairman?
Minutes of the commission meetings conducted on October 26, 2015 have been provided to the members in advance. At this time, I'd like to ask the members if there are any edits, corrections, or amendments. Let me start by just saying that there's a typographical error in item 3 on the minutes, and we should correct the name of the gaming facility location board.
So noted.
Anybody else got corrections or concerns about the minutes? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second, anybody?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up, Rob, is the report of the executive director.
Certainly, thank you. As you're aware, a preliminary suitability report that includes some analysis of background investigations for one of the prospective licensees and principal management staff at that project was provided for your consideration. Staff remains working on compiling and reviewing all post-selection updates for the 3 entity applications and making additional enhancements at the suggestion and request of the commissioners. These updates are going to include, but not be limited to, the addition of or replacement of key personnel, changes to financing structure, alteration to the design project, and more. These summaries will be additionally provided to you when they are completed. Staff continues to work on the licensing document themselves, which will be akin to a comprehensive contract, and this material is still ongoing. Last month, Commissioner Baklemba asked for guidance on the Commission's role, if any, regarding the regulation of daily fantasy sports. As I've previously communicated individually to you, the Office of the State Attorney General subsequently announced an investigation that had morphed into litigation. I think it's appropriate to allow the litigation to proceed before we publicly comment on it, but staff will be watching for any additional developments relative to this item. I want to call it to your attention if you missed our press release, but New York's Equine Medical Director is beginning a pilot program at Aqueduct Racetrack in Belmont Park to screen thoroughbreds for cardiac arrhythmias with the use of a small recording device attached to a smartphone or computer. The additional plan is to test the accuracy of the devices and to build a database of horses and their electrocardiogram results, with an ultimate goal of using future screenings to determine whether a horse might have a serious enough condition to warrant being scratched from a race. This program follows a report by the Equine Safety Review Board, which is headed by the Equine Medical Director, and the board's investigation into horse fatalities during the 2014 Saratoga meet, which included several from cardiac-related deaths. There were also several meetings since our last October meeting that might be of some interest to you. The Harry M. Zweig Memorial Fund for Equine Research conducted its annual meeting at Cornell University last week. The Zweig Fund, which receives its funding indirectly from Racing Handle as a pass-through from the Standardbred and the Thoroughbred Breeding and Development Funds, is statutorily charged to promote equine research at the Cornell University College of Veterinary Medicine. The Zweig Fund annually solicits and reviews research grant proposals. This year they received 11 proposals requesting over $1.344 million in funding, and ultimately chose to award 6 grants in the cumulative amount of nearly $600,000. The fund's work is important as it provides for the study of critical issues relative to equine health and issues of significance for the racing industry. Commission staff also attended 4 events by prospective casino licensees and presented information regarding the vendor licensing process. Our discussion focused on MWBE qualification, as under traditional MWBE programs, state registration is the last step to market entrance. Here, a license will be required to work in the industry. Given this overlay of vendor licensing, we have been endeavoring to undertake a broad and continuous outreach to better enable each license applicant to meet or exceed the 30% MWB goal and to demystify the process of licensing for entities that might not have had to undergo a gaming license regimen previous. Lastly, the Responsible Play Partnership, the group that comprises representatives of the Commission, the Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse Services, and the New York Council on Problem Gambling, conducted its final Let's Start the Conversation event, which brought regional gaming operators and problem gambling service providers together to discuss issues and opportunities that lay ahead, given the state's changing gambling landscape. The well-attended event took place in Queens this past week. The Responsible Play Partnership is already contemplating actions for next year so they can continue their work. And finally, as the staff considers the upcoming calendar year 2016, I'd like each of the commissioners to take some time and consider what policy or procedural objectives you'd like to see addressed this year and bring some of those ideas to staff so that we may be able to do that. As you're aware, this past year, we started the process of reviewing LASIX and seeing how LASIX is operated in New York, and we also undertook the Retired Racehorse Forum, which were both initiatives that were brought to us. Mr. Snyder?
Yes. New York State Racing Parimutuel Wagering and Breeding Law, Section 104.19, authorizes the Commission to promulgate rules and regulations that it deems necessary to carry out its responsibilities. In that regard, the Commission will from time to time promulgate rules and rule amendments pursuant to the State Administrative Procedure Act. We have one such item for consideration today. Rob, will you outline the item for us?
Yes, certainly. As item 4A for Commission consideration is adoption of a proposed regulation that conforms existing regulations to legislation enacted. Specifically, Chapter 258 of the laws of 2014 allowed harness tracks to run races solely for New York-bred horses, and further provides that conditions may be written for such races, quote, notwithstanding any preference date requirements, end quote. The proposed rule would amend the existing rule 4108.8 to add a new subdivision C, making the existing preference date requirements consistent with the new statute. These amendments were published in the New York State Register on October 7th. The public comment period for this proposal closes today, November 23rd. 2 public comments have been received so far. One suggested a more expansive approach, reaching beyond the Sire Stakes program. The second, submitted by the Empire State Harness Horsemen's Alliance, supports the Commission in its promulgation of the rule change. Staff recommends adoption of this rule, conditioned on no substantive comment being received by the close of business today.
Commissioners, are there any questions on the adoption of the amendment to the existing rule regarding preferences in harness racing? No questions? If there are no questions, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I think that brings us to adjudications. The Commission has 2 hearing officer reports for consideration today. Rob, will you please outline the first case?
Sure. The first case is in the matter of Jose Lascano. Thoroughbred jockey Jose Lascano was fined $300 by the Commission steward for violation of Commission Rules 4035.9 and 4022.21. Specifically, he was alleged to strike his mount with goggles instead of a riding crop during the 4th race at Belmont Park on June 11, 2015. Upon request, a hearing was conducted August 6th, 10th, and 27th of this year. The hearing officer submitted a report to the Commission's Action Secretary on October 19th. The hearing officer found that the Commission's citing and finding of Mr. Lascano was arbitrary and capricious and was not supported by substantial evidence. The hearing officer recommended that the finding of a violation be rescinded and that the fine imposed be exonerated. At a meeting conducted pursuant to the judicial or quasi-judicial proceedings exemption of New York Public Officers Law, Section 108.1, the Commission considered this matter.
The Commission duly deliberated and considered this matter and determined upon a 5-0 vote to sustain the hearing officer's report and recommendations. Rob, would you please outline the second case?
Yes, so the second case is in the matter of John Velasquez. Thoroughbred jockey John Velasquez was fined $500 by Commission Stewart on July 9th, 2015 for violation of Commission Rules 4022.13, 4022.21, and 4035.9C1. Specifically, he was alleged to have misused his riding crop while riding in the Grade 2 Suburban Handicap at Belmont Park on July 4, 2015. Upon request, a hearing was conducted on August 27th. The hearing officer submitted a report to the Commission's acting secretary on October 19th. The hearing officer found that the Commission's citing and finding of Mr. Velasquez was not arbitrary and capricious and was supported by substantial evidence. The hearing officer recommended that the finding of a violation be sustained and that the fine imposed remain in effect. At a meeting conducted pursuant to the judicial or quasi-judicial proceedings exemption of New York Public Officers Law, Section 108.1, the Commission considered this matter.
The Commission duly deliberated and considered this matter and determined upon a vote of 5-0 to sustain the hearing officer's report and recommendations. I think that brings us to new and old business. The next item, I think, is old business. Is there any old business to consider, Rob?
No, we have
Any of the commissioners? Old business?
Weren't we getting more info back from the other localities on LASIX? We asked.
Yeah, we're still in the process of
Asking
gathering
them.
that information. The LASIX study and utilization is still an object of continued review.
Yeah, I mean, right. That should take some period of time to finish up, though, right? Those reports seem to run for a while, right?
Yeah.
But the information on the market size,
Yeah.
I just didn't even know if they were being helpful. Do they care? Kentucky, California.
With what they're doing right now?
I mean, it seems to be a controversial issue in Kentucky.
And in California.
California, a little bit, but not as much in Kentucky. You would think that perhaps they either had this or had asked for it as well.
Yeah, there hasn't been much movement since the last time we discussed the issue, and I provided the state-by-state overview.
Right. Okay. Do you think we'll get anything from them?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That brings us to new business, and I think we have two items of new business. One, Rob, was that the issue of rules relating to what constitutes an appropriate crop and how it can be used in a race has come up. And we'd like to ask you to have the staff look at that issue, look at how that issue is handled in other venues, and report back to us with recommendations whether we need to explore amendments to our existing rules.
Okay, we will certainly do that.
The other item, as I understand it, is there's a staff report with regard to allegations that have been made by PETA. Rob, could you outline this item for us?
Yes, certainly. I'd like to present to the Commission a staff report in regard to allegations advanced by the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals in regard to practices of KDE Equine LLC et al. I'm certain you're all aware the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA, sent the Commission 3 letters which lodged serious allegations against thoroughbred horse trainer Stephen M. Asmussen, his top assistant Scott A. Blasi, and the veterinarians who perform services for KDE Equine LLC, which is the stable name used by Mr. Asmussen. The first letter, in general, requested investigation of the Asmussen stable and 2 veterinarians for falsely and improperly racing their horses with race day injections of the diuretic furosemide, commonly known as Lasix, and to investigate a statement of Mr. Blasi that one of the jockeys used by the Asmussen stable rode with an electrical shocking device. A videotape airing these and other concerns was publicly released in proximity to the PETA letter request. The second letter asked the Commission to investigate allegations that the horse In a Flash was raced in violation of a Commission rule within 10 days of an incident in which its lungs bled internally, a condition otherwise known in racing as exercise-induced pulmonary hemorrhage. PETA also alleged that furosemide was used extensively and to enhance the race performance by the Asmussen stable, and that the stable pushed its horses too hard to race, thus causing the bleeding in the lungs. The final letter received from PETA alleged that the Asmussen stable used a medically unnecessary thyroid hormone supplement called thyroxine, creating a danger of heart attacks and other health problems in horses, to improve the race performance of their horses, and administered the thyroxine in violation of a commission rule restricting administration of any hormone within 48 hours of racing. Commission staff's investigation was comprehensive and far-reaching. It included interviews with dozens of individuals, close scrutiny of more than 7 hours of recorded video, and review of thousands of pages of material, including veterinary documents and notes. While the primary investigation was concluded months ago, the volume of materials and writings necessitated staff condense and organize the material into a practical format with applicable conclusions. From there, the Commission staff carefully formulated specific regulatory recommendations to address the most serious allegations that were either brought by PETA or reviewed in context of the investigation undertaken. In short, of the 14 allegations brought by PETA, Commission staff found 4 of the allegations, which are not necessarily equivalent to regulatory violations, to be sustained. These were that veterinarian Joseph Migliacci allowed partially completed furosemide eligibility forms to be completed by third parties. Trainer Stephen Asmussen used a synthetic thyroxine on animals under his care. Thyroxine was administered unlawfully within 48 hours of racing, and drugs, being thyroxine, were administered without evidence of medical necessity. As mentioned, the evidence and allegations provided by PETA led staff to identify 9 regulatory measures for Commission consideration. With regard to furosemide, staff recommends rule proposals that would require a horse that bleeds visibly from its nostrils should be removed from racing and placed on a veterinarian's list by explicit rule. Serious EIPH episodes should be disclosed to subsequent owners. And periodic endoscopic examinations should be required for horses with significant EIPH. With regard to metabolism, staff recommends rule proposals that would require drugs that regulate metabolism, such as thyroxine, among others, should not be permitted within 30 days of racing. Possession of drugs to regulate metabolism, like thyroxine, should be restricted at the racetrack. With regard to over-medication, staff rule recommends proposals that would require that no drug or other substance that could abnormally affect a horse should be administered unless in the course of reasonable, good faith care of the horse. Trainers should be required to keep an administration log of dispensed medications. Veterinarians should renew prescriptions based only on their own medical judgment. And no drug may be administered except to treat a diagnosed medical disorder or as a generally accepted preventative medical practice. We understand at the staff level that several of these recommendations may be controversial to the potentially regulated parties. Thus, staff requests that the Commission allow the 9 recommendations to be released to receive comment in advance of rulemaking consideration. This will get the various proposals out to the potentially affected parties more quickly, which should allow a refinement of the drafts before formal rulemaking is considered by this Commission.
So, I think we all should get a chance to review the report so that we can read it and take it under advisement. And unless anyone has an objection, it seems appropriate to let the Commission go ahead and put the rules out for public comment. I think we should schedule a follow-up discussion for our next meeting, if that meets with the other Commissioners' approval. And we can address any need for further consideration at that time.
Yeah, I presume if we get the rules out for pre-proposal
We'll have
comment,
back
we'll
by-
have some backup materials to discuss at the next meeting.
Do you think that we could have Dr. Palmer present for that so he could address some of the issues with respect to the veterinarians?
Sure. Dr. Palmer is actually on the phone right now. Scott, are you available at our next meeting? At least we thought he was.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Okay. So if that
Well done.
if that deals with the issue for now, does anyone have other new business for consideration?
Want to talk about the staffing issue?
Will we do that?
I didn't think it was.
Okay, we'll do that later. No, I don't have anything.
Am I wrong?
Any old business? Hearing none. The next meeting is scheduled for December 28th. Please advise Ms. Buckley of your
That's-
availability.
Christmas is like 2 days before that.
We want to
two
get it
days
between
before.
Christmas and New Year's if we can,
Okay.
just so that whatever plans you have are
You
short.
couldn't ruin them and come back. Yeah.
Kristen has told me that I was supposed to say it's the 28th.
Is that a Monday?
That is Monday.
I mean, I'm not here.
Huh?
I'm not here.
It's the fourth, our traditional meeting date is the fourth Monday of each month.
We can all make a round of calls.
He's not gonna be here, but everybody will. Okay, we'll just
I'm
look up
actually
the.
not in the country at that time either, so we're gonna have to find it.
Okay.
Okay.
But we'll all advise
Okay.
Kristen about our
Yeah,
availability.
yeah, but
Not on the record.
I thought,
Yeah. That concludes today's published agenda. Do any of the commissioners have other items they'd like to present for consideration?
No.
Hearing none, this meeting.
well, before we
Sorry.
conclude, if we don't meet again in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you'd be looking at, well, after the first of the year, right?
No, we are actually subject to call whenever you would like. We have traditionally chosen the fourth
Yeah, no,
Monday.
I understand
whenever
that,
you
but
like.
just-
So you're talking about something between Thanksgiving and Christmas?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't do it then, you'd be doing it 5 or
Earlier
6
is
weeks
what
later.
you're saying.
Or later, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna push it out.
that's what I'm saying. Unless there's urgent business coming up in the next 21 days,
Okay.
could sort of take a look at 16 now anyways, right? I could do it on the phone, but still what day is appropriate, right?
Adam, are you saying the 28th is not something you're interested in?
Well, I won't be here.
He won't be here.
That's sort of almost irrelevant.
You won't be here either? All right, okay. Easy enough. All right. Thanks.
Right, but so then your option is to go earlier or later.
Sure.
I would think later would make a lot of sense, unless there's something urgent in the next 21 days.
So why don't we ask Ms. Buckley to just look at some dates in the first couple of weeks of January and see what we can do. Is that no?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sounds good.
So I think that that covers the published agenda. If none of you have additional business for consideration, I think we can adjourn this meeting of the New York State Gaming Commission.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
well done, Mr.
Excellent job.
Chairman, well done.